At 05:30 on the morning of July 16, 1945, the pre-dawn stillness of the New Mexico desert was shattered by the most momentous man-made explosion of all time. This was the fiery birth of the atomic bomb, culmination of centuries of step-by-step advance in the scientific quest, achievement of intense international effort by the Democratic Allies, product of unremitting research and toil since 1939. This instant of fury and flame and of violence beyond conception sounded the end of an age and heralded a new era in the destiny of mankind, a new relationship of man to his universe. Only a few carefully selected technical and military observers witnessed this test of new power that rocked the countryside at Alamogordo. The dramatic experiment took place just 6 days after provision of sufficient material for the first bomb. Development and construction of the bomb was the most closely guarded secret in scientific history. Solemn acknowledgement of success by two leading scientists foreshadowed the gravity of events to come. A world steeped in war did not know that a fearsome day was drawing near. On August 6th at 08:15 Japanese time, an Army Air Force B-29 dropped atomic bomb number 2 on Hiroshima, Japan's 7th largest city, a communications, military, and industrial center of considerable importance. A stunned universe now swiftly learned that man had a new weapon of shocking destructiveness, a weapon bordering on the absolute. In the blast, thousands died instantly. 70,000 persons were killed or listed as missing. 140,000 persons were injured. Of these, 43,000 were badly hurt. The city was unbelievably crushed. Of its 90,000 buildings, over 60,000 were demolished. The desolate remains were aptly described as vapor and ashes. Man had torn from nature one of her innermost secrets, and with his newfound knowledge had fashioned an instrument of annihilation. Menacing implications of this extraordinary weapon were frightening to everyday people.
Well, what did you think of that bomb we dropped on the Japs, Mrs. Glenn?
Oh, isn't it terrible? All those people killed.
3 days later, another B-29 dropped an improved bomb on the major Japanese seaport of Nagasaki, a highly congested, industrialized city boasting the best natural harbor in western Kyushu and extensive naval facilities. This bomb, exploding over the North Factory District, took the lives of 42,000 persons and injured 40,000 more. It destroyed 39% of all the buildings standing in Nagasaki before the calamity. The Japanese described their bleak, mutilated city as a graveyard with not a tombstone standing. These two terrifying blows were struck at Japan only after profound consideration of all the human and military factors involved. The atomic bombs were dropped to end the war quickly, and they did end the war quickly.
For 3 years, gathering momentum with each small victory, our forces had conducted an offensive against the war-bloated empire of the rising sun. Slowly, island by island, mile by mile, and then with ever-quickening sweeps, the combined land, sea, and air forces of the Allies drove against the borders of that empire, forcing it back until late in 1945, only the bastions of the Japanese home islands remained to be stormed. Our submarines were already roaming the Sea of Japan. Planes were devastating cities almost at will. The back of Japan's military might had been broken. Her navy was smashed and useless. Her marine transport was destroyed. Her industrial power was crushed. All this had been accomplished only with great sacrifices of killed and wounded among our personnel and tremendous cost of equipment and supplies. Ahead lay the greatest campaign of all, invasion of the Japanese homeland and close-in, desperate fighting. That this fanatical enemy would not quit until her last fighting man had been driven from his cave and killed had been established time and again by bitter experience. The price to be paid in casualties for successful invasion of Japan could not be estimated in exact dimensions. That the cost would be greater than in any other campaign of our long history could not be denied. This fact was accepted in its stark reality as plans to launch the invasion were completed. Ships in strong armadas, planes in great flotillas, men in vast numbers were already being gathered under a pre-Alamogordo strategy that had not been able to count on the aid of atomic weapons. Secretary of War Stimson, explaining the situation which existed when the atomic bomb became available for use against the enemy, designated employment of the bomb our least abhorrent choice. Weighed in the balance, he said, were the lives of thousands upon thousands of our fighting men. The total of United States military and naval forces engaged as potential combatants was 5 million men, plus millions more of our allies. The Japanese still had intact army forces of 5 million who would seek to repel the invasion. It was vitally necessary then to produce the greatest possible blow upon the Japanese people if the war were effectively to be shortened. Should the war follow a normal course, even with fortune favoring our efforts, military leaders estimated that it would be late in 1946 before the end of the war was in sight. 12 more months of war. The blow must be struck. It must be struck in a way that would leave the enemy no recourse, no choice, but quick surrender. A demonstration bomb on uninhabited Japanese territory was rejected by a responsible panel in that it would prove inconclusive, risk the security of the weapon, and fail to deliver its intended psychological blow. On July 26, 1945, the Japanese were solemnly warned of the penalties of continued resistance by the terms of the Potsdam Declaration, signed by President Truman and by Prime Minister Attlee of the United Kingdom, with the concurrence of Chiang Kai-shek, President of the National Government of China. Thus, the terms Japan later accepted were offered in advance of the atomic bombing. The Japanese rejected the Potsdam Declaration as unworthy of notice and fought on. President Truman made the final decision: the atomic bomb would be used.
At Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the atomic bombs destroyed the cities as entities. In panic, the populations of both cities fled. At Hiroshima, it was 30 hours before the first rescue teams were organized. What the bomb had produced was concentrated chaos, chaos from which no city of any nation could easily or rapidly recover. In these Japanese cities, no significant repair or reconstruction was accomplished until months later. The fabric of community life had been shredded in an instant.